There are places in the world that seem to breathe differently, where time doesn't move quite the same way, where the air carries the weight of stories never told. Northern Minnesota, deep in the boundary waters, is one of those places. Vast forests, frozen lakes, and endless miles of wilderness, where the only sound for days can be the whisper of wind against pine. It's a land untouched by most, where compasses spin wild, where GPS signals vanish, and where, for generations, old trappers and rangers have warned, there are corners of these woods that don't belong to us. The story begins in November of 1998 with two lifelong friends, Aaron Keller and Mark Donovan, both experienced hunters raised on the edge of those northern forests. They'd hunted there since they were teenagers, mapping out their favorite spots, familiar with every trail, ridge, and river crossing. But that year, they decided to push deeper, to spend a week tracking elk beyond the mapped areas, into the region locals called the Hollow Spine, a name whispered, half in jest, half in warning. The first 2 days were uneventful. Quiet skies, fresh snow, and the rhythmic routine of wilderness life. Wake, fire, trek, rest. But on the third morning, the weather shifted abruptly. The light flattened, clouds rolled in, and the forest took on that muffled silence that only heavy snow brings. They followed animal tracks through a narrow valley, unsure of their direction anymore. The GPS refused to sync. Their compass needle trembled, pointing nowhere steady. Still, the men pressed on, laughing off the eeriness with that kind of rural confidence, the kind that says, "We've been in worse." By late afternoon, they realized they were lost. The snow was falling thicker now, flakes like ash. They radioed to their base camp. No signal, just static. They turned to retrace their route, but every turn looked the same, every ridge a mirror of the last. The woods had gone utterly still, no birds, no wind, only the dull crunch of boots and the low hum of their breath. Then Mark spotted something ahead, a line of dark shapes through the snow. At first they thought it was rocks, but as they drew closer, the shapes resolved into logs, a structure, half hidden among birch and pine. It was a cabin. Old, gray, and standing in a small clearing they swore hadn't been on any map. No smoke, no movement, but it was real. Heavy timber construction, moss climbing the base, a roof sagging under years of snow. The men exchanged uncertain looks. In that wilderness, finding a structure that far off-grid was nearly impossible. Still, they were freezing. Light was fading. An instinct said shelter first, questions later. The front door was slightly ajar, creaking softly in the wind. Aaron pushed it open with the barrel of his rifle. Inside, darkness. Then the faint smell of old wood, ash, and something else, like rust and earth. He shone his flashlight around. The cabin interior was simple. One room, a table, 2 chairs, and a stone fireplace at the far end. But it looked lived in. Not recently maybe, but not abandoned long ago either. A half-burnt candle sat on the mantel. A coat hung by the door, stiff with age. Mark ran his gloved hand over the table and frowned. There was no dust, none. They decided to stay. They built a small fire in the old hearth, unrolled their sleeping bags, and sat close to the warmth. Outside, the storm thickened. Night came fast, the kind that smothers light completely. Aaron swore he heard movement beyond the cabin walls, a crunch, then another, circling. But when he stepped outside with his flashlight, the beam showed only snowfall, endless and thick. Inside again, something had changed. The air felt heavier, colder, though the fire still burned strong. Mark was staring at the far corner, near a window. "There was a chair there," he said quietly. Aaron looked. The corner was empty. He was sure Mark was mistaken. Fatigue, the storm, nerves. They joked again, trying to break the tension, but when they both lay down, sleep didn't come easy. At 2:17 a.m., Aaron awoke to the sound of someone walking inside. Soft, deliberate steps across the wood floor. He froze. The fire had burned down to embers, casting long shadows that danced on the walls. He whispered Mark's name. No answer. The footsteps stopped. Then, from the far side of the cabin, the faint sound of humming. Low, tuneless, but unexpectedly human. He reached for his flashlight and clicked it on. The room was empty. Mark sat up suddenly, pale, eyes wide. "You heard it too," he said. They searched the cabin again. Nothing. No hidden doors, no basement, no footprints but their own. But when Aaron opened the door to step outside, there were bare footprints in the snow leading from the tree line straight to the cabin, and then stopping. No sign of return tracks. The storm lasted 3 more days. They stayed inside, afraid to risk getting lost further. But each night they heard it again, the slow steps, the hum, the creak of the door moving on its own. One morning they found new objects inside the cabin that hadn't been there before. A tin cup, a child's wooden toy, a torn photograph of a man standing beside what looked like the same cabin, but far older. The faces in the photo were blurred by time. When the weather finally broke, they packed their gear and left. They marked the coordinates by compass and direction, though the readings made no sense, and hiked until they found the main trail. They reached civilization 2 days later, exhausted but safe. They told their story to the local ranger, who listened quietly, then brought out a topographical map. The spot they indicated was empty. He said, "There's nothing there, not for 50 miles in any direction." Aaron insisted. He drew the outline of the clearing, the stream beside it, the ridge line. The ranger leaned back. "That sounds like the old Wicklow lot," he said finally. "There was a cabin out there, in the 1930s. A family of 3 froze to death one winter. Fire took what was left. There's nothing standing now." The men returned the next spring with a small search team. They hiked to the same area, same path, same ridge. But there was no cabin. Only a foundation of charred stone, half buried under moss, trees grown through where walls might have stood. Among the debris, they found something that made Aaron go cold. A half-burnt candle, and beside it, a photograph, the same one they'd seen inside the cabin. Over time, both men drifted apart. They never spoke about it again, not openly. But years later, Aaron told the story to a journalist writing about wilderness disappearances. He said he'd stopped hunting after that. It wasn't just that the cabin shouldn't have been there, it was that it wanted us there, like it was waiting. Since then, other stories have surfaced. Hikers, hunters, even park rangers, all describing similar experiences. A cabin where none should exist, often appearing during storms, always disappearing afterward. In every account, there's a moment when the visitor realizes they're not alone. Some claim to have heard the same low humming. Others say they saw smoke rising from a chimney that, when approached, led to nothing but forest. Folklorists in the region linked the legend to a century-old story about the Wicklow family, settlers who built a cabin deep in the woods in 1928, only to vanish the following winter. Their remains were found months later by trappers, frozen in their beds, the fire long dead. No one knows what happened. Some say starvation, others something else. But the strange part
is that local Ojibwe tribes spoke of that place long before, calling it the hollow that remembers. They said the land there holds what it's given, people, sound, memory, as though it replays itself over and over for those who stumble in, a loop, a ghost of time. To this day, the Wicklow site remains unmarked. The forest keeps reclaiming it, growing thicker every year. But occasionally, hunters still come back from those woods with stories of lights between the trees, the echo of voices, or the faint outline of a cabin that appears just at the edge of the storm. Maybe it's just coincidence, fatigue, snowblindness, tricks of the mind, or maybe in the quietest corners of the wild, their
documentary telling story. Years later, in 2011, a group of amateur wilderness explorers stumbled across a peculiar online forum dedicated to lost architecture, places that appear on old maps but no longer exist. Hidden among hundreds of entries about forgotten mines and ghost towns was a thread titled "Cabin in the Hollow Spine, Coordinates Unknown." The thread had only 4 posts, all from different usernames, each describing nearly identical experiences across decades: snowstorm, loss of direction, a wooden cabin appearing where no structure was supposed to exist, and a sense that the place itself was aware of them. The first post was from 1972, a forest surveyor who mentioned finding an unlisted homestead ruin that looked freshly lived in. He ended the post cryptically, "Never saw it again, but I still hear the hum." The last post was dated only a few months before the thread vanished entirely. It was from a user named AK98. Some believed that was Aaron Keller himself. The message was short and unsettling. "If you ever find it, don't light the fire. That's how it starts." From that point, the cabin that shouldn't exist became a quiet obsession among online mystery communities. Internet sleuths cross-referenced satellite maps, forestry archives, even Cold War-era aerial photos. Nothing. The land around the Hollow Spine Ridge appeared ordinary until one anomaly surfaced. A single satellite photo taken in January 2003 showed for just one frame a faint rectangular structure near the coordinates described in Aaron's statement. It vanished in the next frame, taken less than 2 hours later. Analysts chalked it up to a glitch, image corruption due to snow reflection. But others weren't convinced. The outline matched the dimensions of a small, single-room log cabin. By 2016, documentary filmmaker Lisa Moreau, known for her investigative series on wilderness disappearances, decided to chase the legend. She spent months gathering reports, interviewing locals, and digging through archived ranger logs. What she found was eerily consistent. Every few years, someone filed an odd incident report from roughly the same zone: unexplained lights, disoriented travelers, compass failure, missing time, and in one case, a group of snowmobilers claiming to have seen a figure in a window, waving them away. When Lisa finally entered the Hollow Spine with her small crew, they carried the best navigation gear available: GPS triangulation, motion-triggered trail cams, and high-frequency radios. The footage recovered later would become the most disturbing part of her documentary. The first 3 days of recordings were uneventful, but on the 4th night, the cameras captured something strange. The team's temperature sensors spiked erratically, showing cold spots hovering just outside the tent perimeter. Then, at 2:41 a.m., a faint melody, that same low, tuneless hum, bled into their audio feed, lasting exactly 16 seconds before cutting out. At sunrise, they found fresh footprints circling the tent, bare, human. The prints led northeast toward a ridge, and though Lisa insisted on following them, her guide refused. He said, That way's cursed. You don't chase footsteps that walk in circles. But she did. They followed the tracks for nearly an hour until the forest opened into a small clearing, and there it was. A cabin, standing silent and solid, half lit by the morning sun. The footage shows Lisa staring at it, mouth open, trembling. She whispers, "It's real." Her cameraman pans slowly across the structure. Wooden logs, narrow windows, a door hanging slightly off its hinge, exactly as described in the 1998 account. Then, without warning, the feed glitches, static. When the image stabilizes again, the cabin is gone. Only empty clearing, the snow unbroken. No tracks, no structure. Lisa can be heard crying softly, "It was right there." Her documentary, Hollow Spine, The Cabin That Shouldn't Exist, was released the following year, but within weeks it was pulled from streaming platforms after a copyright dispute with the production company. Bootleg copies still circulate online, though the last 10 minutes are missing. In a 2018 interview, one of her sound engineers revealed something chilling. During post-production, they isolated that strange humming from the field audio. When slowed down, the waveform revealed an embedded pattern, not random noise, but a voice, layered multiple times. The words, when enhanced, seemed to repeat, "Stay with the fire." Today, the Hollow Spine region remains largely inaccessible. The U.S. Forestry Service lists it as an unstable terrain area, closed to the public due to landslide risk. But in 2020, a hiker's GoPro footage surfaced briefly on Reddit before being removed. It showed snow falling over an open clearing, and for 3 seconds, in the background, a dark outline that looked exactly like a small wooden cabin. Investigators dismissed it as an editing trick, but there was one frame that caught everyone's attention, a dim orange glow flickering faintly through a window. What makes this legend endure isn't just the mystery of a phantom cabin, it's the feeling that some places are alive, that nature, in all its beauty, sometimes holds its own memories too tightly. Maybe the Wicklow cabin was real. Maybe it was destroyed long ago, only to echo itself through time, replaying, rebuilding, calling out to those who wander too close. Or maybe it's something older than the cabin itself, something that uses familiarity, the safety of shelter, to draw people in, the perfect trap for those lost in the storm. Whatever it is, it remains out there, deep in those northern woods where the compasses still refuse to point north. And if you ever see a faint cabin light in the snow, a warm fire calling you closer, remember what Aaron Keller said, "If you ever find it, don't light the fire. That's how it starts."